So let's get started. This is a quick presentation about my own sort of pipeline tools. So where it comes. So let's just check how we can create a simple asset for the library. I will use Megascans assets to demonstrate that. Okay, so go to my local drive and store, find some interesting stuff, maybe a new one. Okay, maybe food or really interesting mud rock. Okay, first of all, the export settings should be a specific Arnold and Maya specific settings, which I already set. I will release a few information about this on my blog, so you can check that later. The export settings, actually the main thing is the load 0 and the high poly source. I will download the high poly version as well, so that in the download settings the models should use the load 0, load 5. This is good for subdiv and displacement assets. This is good for proxies, and this is of course the high resolution source geometry, which is not really the source because that's the Z tool, but yeah. FBX, it's okay. Textures should be this way. JPEG everything, and the displacement is JPEG plus EXR. Yeah, so download. It should be fairly quick. And of course, in Maya, I started the plugin. So now it's running in the background. Actually, I'm using my own modified version of the exporter importer script of the original, because the original was not specifically works that way I would like to use it, and maybe it's not works that way, which is really practical. So I changed it, I modified it, so this is my version. So now I just click export and go back to Maya, and I just have to wait. The textures are converted to TIFFs. Now Maya is importing the high resolution geometry, which is this one. And it's automatically generated the shaders and all the connections. I mean the shader graph and its connections to the nodes. It's really a really simple setup, because this is the high resolution geometry. I'm using only the roughness, the albedo, and the normal map. We don't need the displacement and the subdivs and all that stuff currently. Sometimes it's importing in a strange way, because the FBX is in strangely generated, so it's using a word root group, which we don't need. So I just unparent the object and just delete the group. So first of all, this is a load 0 normal map, which is not really practical for us because this is the high resolution geometry. That means we have to create a high frequency normal map from this one, because the high resolution geometry already contains all the necessary details, and we don't want to use that twice as geometry, and you can see as a normal map as well. So we don't want to to do that. We don't want to modulate the normals twice. So I created a simple action in Photoshop, which is generating the high frequency normal maps from an existing one. This is not really, precise and everything, but it's not the same as, if you just create a new normal map from the high resolution geometry. For example, in ZBrush, this is not the same, but it's usually good enough. So this is the generated version. If you're interested, I posted this on my blog, how you can create this action, and you can reconstruct it. So it's not super complicated. So I will merge the two layers, and I will save this texture as normal HF, as high frequency. So I will save this as LZW TIFF, which is PG. So I have to relink to that file, which is here. And now I can use the normal map. Inside the normal map node, I can use the strength at 1. I don't have to reduce the intensity of the normal map because it only contains the high frequency stuff, which is more detailed than the geometry itself. So it will work nicely. So now I can put down some light, which is a light dome, and I will change the used CPU threads on my machine, because it's now streaming, and also I will use the Arnold render view. So for streaming, I using a lot less. So now I can, for example, I can check the textures in the viewport, which is, well, it's not great, but it's something. So it's fairly okay. All right. So I will have to check also the albedo. Maybe it's not the correct color range, inside the correct color range, but it looks like this is a really simple, a fairly simple texture, but the color range looks fairly okay. There are some really dark and saturated spots, which is not good. That can cause some issues in the compositing and rendering part. I have a simple, less strict color range checker action, which, it will select all the, not selects, but highlights in red the incorrect pixels. You can fix that, but for this presentation I will not. So I will just remove this and I close the textures. This will be enough for this in this case. Okay, so now I can just start the Arnold IPR. Arnold will generate the TX files. You have to wait for that, but you have to wait for that only once. So now it's done. It's not not really a high resolution render, but we can change that, maybe full HD. And now we can check the render. It works fairly nicely. It's not super, interesting and everything, but it's okay. It's not a really, as I usually said, superhero asset, but maybe from this distance it's good enough. So how we can create an asset for our own library? It's not something really horrendous. It's super easy. I created a simple pipeline panel for this. You can download this at my blog. Super easy to use. We just need a proxy geometry. So I will import the load 5 version of this geometry. Go to files. Usually it's pop up in the back. So this is the lot 5. So I will just put that here. Still using the strange group. So this will be the name of the asset, right? This one. And this will be the proxy. So I just go to _ low. I can reassign the correct shader or assign the correct shader to the proxy, but it's really not necessary because the exporter scripts will replace that with a default Lambert 1 shader or something like that. Yeah. So, but for the sake of demonstration, I assign the correct texture. I mean the shader material, and then I just select the high resolution geometry and then the low resolution geometry, and I go to the export ASS plus proxy plus high res script. The naming part is not finished, of course. It's a little bit complicated, but it's doing what it says. So it will export an ASS file from the high resolution geometry, then will export then this will change a few things in the shape node. It will switch the Arnold translator to the procedural part, and then link the previously exported ASS file to here, and then it will export the high resolution geometry with the original material, and it will export the low resolution geometry as a proxy file as well. So it will create 3 different export, and you can use those anyhow you want, but the system is providing a few simple way to do that. So I just click here. I will select the folder, this is the main folder for my Arnold library. In the future, I have plans to change how this toolkit works, so it will be much more usable and much more user-friendly, I should say. But now I just select the Arnold library folder and click open. Now all the exporting and scripting and everything part is just done. Because I started a render previously, the takes generation is already done, so the export took less time because when you actually exporting the ASS files, it will generate the takes files if it's not already there, but now those were existing, so it should be fairly quick. So check how this works. So this is the low resolution geometry. The script is changed the Arnold translator to procedural, and it linked the ASS file, and it clicked a few things here. So when you try to render this proxy geometry, it's already should work nicely. So I will I don't need this one. I will start the render, and it works like a charm. So it's fast and it's really interactive, and this is the high resolution geometry in the render, but in the viewport you have the super low res with the basic Lambert shader. So how can you use this in a different scene, right? So the main thing is you create those assets, those exports, and then you can use this in any scene you want. So I will not save this because every part is saved separately, so I don't need this file actually anymore. So I will create a new scene. I will create a maybe, okay, I will create a new project. So this will be maybe test. No, that's not the best name for a new project. Maybe Rocky Scene Huge. This is not super funny, but this is what it is. So accept. The project is created. I will save this empty scene into that project. So it's super simple. Just double click, Control C, and maybe I will just save this one. So now we can import the proxy geometries. So we can use the multi-importer, which is the basic Maya importer tool. Just a few flags is changed, so now it can import multiple objects or multiple files at the same time. So it's basic Maya. So this is the proxy folder inside the Arnold library folder. So I just go to the proxy folder. This is sorted in date modified, means this is the last object I created. So if I just import this one, the object is here. I create a sky dome, it's here. I changed, this is a new scene, so I have to change the CPU threads, and I can start Arnold IPR, and that's it. This is so fast. So it's loaded instantly, almost, because I don't restart Maya. I didn't restart Maya, so it stores some of the cacheable elements of the existing assets or rendered assets, already rendered assets. But if it don't, it's still really fast. So super fast. All right. So that's nice and fast. But what if you want to scatter these objects? It's super easy because it's just a simple object, right? With a few tweaks. This is a simple Maya geometry and Maya shape node, so nothing special. So now, if you want to scatter a few objects, maybe we want to import some, I don't know, some plants, maybe a few plants and sea spinach, which is funny. Okay, maybe import a few other objects. Yeah, those are here. See? Also, really low res proxies. You can just use mesh, select the objects, which is in origin, click. So this is created a repo mesh node, which is we don't want because that's a geometry and we want instances. So just select the mesh node and click on the switcher. So now it's an instancer. So I will open the mesh editor. And then I just click maybe an ID and change to random. It's automatically used the ID count 4 because I used 4 objects. So it checked the instancer IDs. So that's why it's automatically 4. I just switch to random, and then I can use maybe the distribution, maybe mesh. And I just drag and drop with middle mouse this object, and then I can increase the number of points. Yeah, maybe more, a little bit more. So, this is a good old Maya viewport bug, which is the instancer. If it's selected, you have to isolate nothing and then unisolate. So sometimes the highlight can be, strange, but the selection highlight. But then we can use a randomize node. We don't want to randomize the position, but we want to randomize the rotation a little bit here, a little bit there. We want local space we want uniform scale, and then we can just use the scale X. So now we have different scales. Actually, that's it. So if we want to go back to the Arnold render view, just press it, and it should be fairly quick. And here it is. So the interactivity level of this scene, and for much more complex scenes as well, it's really nice. It's just Mesh Network and Arnold render view really likes each other. So I will switch off the camera navigation mode here, the 3D manipulation, and then I will just modify a few things. You can animate, you can do everything here because the render view is really interactive. So maybe I want a little bit more, I don't know, maybe 20,000 or something. Yeah, that's it. So it's pretty fast. Maybe you want to offset the scale, because the random node works just not plus minus way, or is just upscaling in positive direction the object. So we have to maybe offset the actual size of each instances globally. So I can use local, I can use offset. I don't need rotation and I don't need position. I just need the offset scale. So maybe minus 0.5, minus 0.5, minus 0.5. So that's a uniform scale, and because of offset, it's just lowering the scale this way. So maybe a little bit better way to do this with the multiplication, but you don't want a negative multiplication, because that means everything is just under, because it's negative scale. So, and then maybe 0.5, 0.5, maybe that's a little bit better way to do this, not the offset one. Okay, so now I need more objects, maybe, I don't know, 100,000. My viewport can be slow when instancing. You can turn that off entirely. So if you just select the instancer and the display percentage is just using 0, the viewport will not calculate anything. See? But in the render, it's the same. So that's it. It's pretty fast, pretty nice. And of course, because this is just an object, you can scatter this as well. You can maybe you can just duplicate the object. You don't have to use the instance way, because every time you just duplicate this one, every settings will be, the same. So Arnold, when it sees an ASS files, it's automatically instanced. So if you just copy this, scale, rotate, and it's super interactive. So you can use this way. All right. Okay, this is not a really nice scene, but maybe it's enough to understand how this simple tool works. All right, that's it for today, and see you next time.